Oh shit, my bad.
All right. Welcome back to Monsters of the Gridiron podcast. We got our boy Will, we got our guy Swift, and we got a special guest in the building, Herb Howard, Chicago Bears, Chicago sports beat reporter, legendary in my mind. How you doing today, fam?
Man, I'm great. It's always a pleasure to chop it up with y'all, man. So I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for the gracious introduction, man.
Man, we appreciate you for coming on, especially at this time we're recording, but once you guys watch it, we going at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m., which is not the norm for us. Maybe for Herb, but not for some of us. So we're getting used to it. But how you been handling all this craziness and this nonsense on Bears Twitter? A lot of us we deal with trolls on a daily basis when we
Right.
give out our opinions. I've seen you go on many different shows, and when I see them when I see them post the video from wherever it is, CHGO or wherever you go, they just seem to always be right up under there. Like if you ain't saying exactly what they want you to say, they going crazy. So how you been handling? How you been keeping your peace and your sanity?
No, I'm good with it, man. It's mostly fun. Every now and then you got to pull back, unplug. Like I was saying before we came on camera, I probably took like a week or so just get away from it. But it's been like a 2 year run. You know what I mean? Since the Bears ended up with the number one pick last year, it's been like a 2 year run of the Bears just kind of being, at the top of news, at least locally. But so it's been a something you get used to. But sometimes you do got to unplug. From I mostly have fun with it, man. I try to ignore the negative stuff most of the time. Every now and then I got time for it, and when I got time for it, I'll go ahead and play around with it. But mostly I just kind of stay away from it. People got their own opinions about everything. And that's cool, but it should just remain that way. It shouldn't be so toxic as it is. You know what I mean? You can't be on one side of the Justin Fields, Caleb Williams debate without having to hate the other side. And it's like that ain't necessary. But people do that, and they gonna have behind Twitter. Everybody tough behind their keyboard. You know what I mean? People say stuff to you on Twitter that they would never walk up to me and say. So, I ignore it most of the time. But every now and then I got time for it. It's cool.
Yeah, no, I was talking to Will a little bit earlier. He said you got that 71st and Jeffrey in you. I used to stay over there for I think 68th and Jeffrey right before
Oh yeah, so
it turned into Lakeshore. Yeah,
exactly.
I
So
know
you know what
you
it
don't
is,
play
man.
playing. You don't
Ah,
play in person.
that's why I think the whole Twitter beef stuff is funny to me. Like that's not real, man. You know what I mean? Like I'm really from South Side Chicago. I'm really from over East. Like I knew what beef was when I was 9, 10 years old. Like this ain't that. Like you know what I mean? So it's mostly funny. It's mostly funny.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Swift. You want to go ahead and kick it off with some questions?
Man, Herb, always pleasure to talk to you, man. You're one of the most respected guys out there. We're talking Bears. I think we're gonna want to avoid. Actually, you know what? We're just gonna get into it. Bill was gonna try to avoid it, but let's hear your thoughts on the Caleb Williams Justin Fields debate. We might as well get that out the way, and then
Yeah,
we'll
for sure,
move
for
on
sure.
from that.
For sure, man. It's always a pleasure to chop it up with you too, man. I rock with you the long way. So I'm pro Justin Fields. I just think that's the best route, the most efficient route for the Bears to get to the Super Bowl. I don't have nothing against Caleb Williams. I think he very well may develop into the player that many people think he has the potential to be. I certainly hope he reaches and maximizes his potential. Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. I just don't think that's a need for the Bears right now. I don't think that's their biggest issue. I think they have 4 or 5 holes left on this roster in terms of starters. I don't think quarterback is one of those things. So I think if you continue to just build around Justin, get him some more weapons, get him another wide receiver, get him a legitimate center. Maybe bring in a U tight end, and then address some things on the defensive side of the ball with a 3 tech and an edge rusher, and now free safety, and you'll be good. So I just don't think that Justin is the problem. I think he's got a very, very unique skill set in terms of his ability to make every throw on the field, but also his unique ability to make plays with his legs. And so, I just don't view him as a problem. And because I don't think he's the problem, I just don't view, the Caleb Williams route as being necessary for them to go forward.
No, I feel the same way, man. I think a lot of times people they want to push too much onto the quarterback. They want to blame everything on the quarterback. It's always quarterback's fault for wins, quarterback's faults for losses. When you look at our team and the entire roster we have, there's We have 2 first-round picks that we drafted on the entire roster. It's Justin Fields and Darnell Wright. So there's a lot of other positions we can go for. And you nailed them there. Center is a huge one. Another wide receiver other than DJ Moore, somebody who can make a play for our quarterback. And then we need more help on the interior of the offensive line, another edge rusher, a free safety. So what are your thoughts heading into free agency? What do you think is our biggest need?
Yeah, I think trying to rank which ones are biggest. I don't know. I just generally figure out what their major needs are, and then you go about trying to figure out where you can go to address those needs. Can you address it? Which ones can you address via free agency? Which ones are you better off addressing via the draft? And that's just about what the free agent class looks like at center, what the free agent class looks like at edge rusher, and then what the upcoming draft class looks like at those positions. And if you feel comfortable about being able to solve one of your needs in the draft, then you don't have to overspend in free agency. If you don't feel like this is a good year for center, you don't feel like this is a good year for edge rushers or three techs, whatever it is, then you got to look at free safety and you got to look at free agency. I'm sorry, and try to find a veteran to fill those needs. And so as you go through and figure out what your needs are, then you compare that to what's available via those two different pathways. And so if you think you can get some holes filled via free agency, then that will dictate what you need to do or don't need to do going into the draft. And so I won't necessarily say what the biggest ones are. You have to get a center. You got to get a legitimate center, right? You can't go into another season with a maybe center, a backup center, or one of those kind of versatile interior guys. You need a legitimate starting NFL caliber center. Now, whether that comes out of college or that's a proven guy in free agency, that's cool. And you got to get another target opposite DJ Moore. So offensively, I think those are their two biggest needs. Defensively, I would say the edge rusher is probably their biggest need. I know that the three tech is the engine of this defense. And, we've seen Tommy Harris dominate that position and play at a real high level. So you know how important that is. But I think that if you get another edge rusher opposite Montez Sweat, then that kind of alleviates some of the pressure from the interior D lineman. We saw Justin Jones improve, Javon Dexter improved once Montez Sweat got here. So theoretically, if you get another edge rusher, a proven edge rusher to play on opposite him, then that should continue to alleviate some of that pressure for those interior guys. And maybe, Javon Dexter, Zach Pickens can continue to develop. And sure, they'll make some more investments at that spot. But I just think it's all about, which way they think they can go about answering those questions, either free agency or the draft.
I think you nailed it on the head with the defensive tackle. I think they put a huge investment into Javon Dexter. He was one of the best rookie defensive tackles down the stretch in the NFL. He had a ton of improvement. And if we do get another edge rusher, like you suggested, another thing along with those guys developing inside, Demarcus Walker can also kick inside to three tech on passing downs and help out as well. So I think adding an edge rusher is more important than a three tech this year. I think they're going to count on the development of Javon Dexter.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he gave him plenty of reason to think that way, going forward. Like down the stretch, he just continued to get better. I mean, when he first got here, he was slow off the ball, and it was a big question of, how much of that was, what he was actually doing in college versus is he just slow off the ball? And I think, even throughout the course of training camp, you saw him get a little bit faster. And I spent a couple of weeks in training camp just watching every single one of his snaps and literally charting them and writing them down. Was he on time or a little bit delayed getting off the ball? Was his get off adequate or not? And each day those slow get offs just decreased a little bit more and more to the point where it wasn't an issue anymore. And then by the time later in the season came, they had Montez Sweat. He had an opportunity to work behind vets like Billings and Jones. You can just see he was now just starting to play football, and all that thinking and stuff wasn't happening. And you started to see the pressures, got him a sack, started to be able to chase some moving quarterbacks off their spot. And so I think he'll continue to develop. He can ultimately be a really good player for this team. I know you can't guarantee that, but I think they're very excited about where he is in his development right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Very excited about Javon Dexter. I think Zach Pickens improved a lot down the stretch as well. Will, did you want to go ahead and hit him with a question?
Yeah, Herb. Last year you curbed my expectations because we was having those crazy predictions of where we thought we were finished. I think I said 15-2, 13-4.
Yeah.
When you told me, you brought it down. You said, "Look, I'm watching this offensive line, and now it really places a special emphasis on the trenches, not just starting caliber center and maybe I don't know. I'm looking at even a right guard pushing Tevin Jenkins the right guard and making Nate Davis a swing guard, and then also looking at a left tackle and making Braxton Jones a swing tackle. So, with that being said, we just saw the recipe in the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy and the Chiefs as well. Chiefs had 15. As far as having the trenches solidified, two things. Do you think if we really focus this offseason draft on building our trenches with depth and starting caliber players, coupled with this new coaching that's coming in, and specifically on the offensive side of the ball, because I've been watching a lot of tape on Shane Waldron and Kerry Joseph. Do you think that in itself? Because realistically, we should have had 10 wins even with a dysfunctional offensive side of the ball last year. Do you think that would be more advantageous of us realistically hitting 10 to 12 wins this upcoming year? Because when you look at the schedule again, we got a last place schedule with New England, and I know everybody's going to get better. But when you look at where we can go, and as you stated earlier, Justin, to all of us, he's not the issue. It's really more so everything around. Do you think with the integration of those resources and assets, and of course better coaching, we can really take that jump, compete in the North? Because I'm not even worried about winning the North. Compete in the North, get to the playoffs, and start building some long-term sustainable success.
Yeah, I think that has to be the expectation going into the 24 season. Like that should be the floor for the Bears to make the playoffs right now. I remember asking Ryan Poles prior to the 23 season what percentage of the holes on the roster did he feel like he had filled, and he was like about 75, 80%. And so, okay, you go through that process, you found out, which one of your free agents and which ones of your rookies were actually hits, and then now you come into this season and you should be confident that you're still somewhere around just 20 to 25% in terms of holes you need to fill in this roster, and you got a lot of resources to be able to fill those holes coming into this offseason. And so I think the expectation has to be for the Bears to be a playoff team. I think that 10 wins should be a minimum right there for them. I think that should be what they're eyeing for, and they should be looking to try to get 11, 12 wins. And I think that's about where they should be, and maybe they can win a playoff game and get to a divisional round or something like that. I don't think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender this year. I think that window is legitimately next year. But I think they should be a playoff team and a tough team to beat. Right, defensively, they showed themselves to be competitive in the division already. They outplayed Detroit twice. You know what I mean? They went up there and outplayed them, gave that game away. They beat them at the crib. So they outplayed them twice. They went to Minnesota and beat them at their crib. So, they've been competitive in the division. The Green Bay Packers has been a 30-year conundrum for them. So I don't know when or if they ever gonna figure that out. I'm so sick of talking about that as a rivalry. Knock it off. I think they certainly were competitive against teams in their division. So that should be the expectation that they'll be competitive again. And I think the playoffs should be the floor for the Bears coming into this season.
I couldn't agree more. To add on that a little bit, when you have exactly like you said, a young roster, we're improving. And now for the second straight year, we got the number 1 overall pick. This year, we got 2 top 10 picks, and we're top 3 in salary cap space again. Obviously, some of that's going to come down when you have to pay 2 top 10 picks, and you're going to have to re-sign Jalen Johnson. But we still have flexibility to make some moves in free agency, add 2 first-round picks to this roster that can really use another infusion of star players. And that's what you usually find in the top 10 of the draft. So it's an exciting year. And I think you're right there. This is a team that is set up to compete this season. And I think that further points towards continuity and building around Justin Fields, continuing with what we had going at the end of last season and trying to take that jump next season. And hopefully, like you said, beat the Packers. I think that's a big part of it. Can we beat the Packers?
Man, that'd be nice.
Yeah. I got a question for you guys. After for all three. So after the news of Eddie Jackson and CODY Whitehair being cut, that frees up a ton of cap space, right? And everybody's been talking about extensions all year, especially after Cole Kmet got his last season, and then it was dormant. There was nothing, right? Obviously, the big name right now is Jalen Johnson. And once that cut made, all I seen on Twitter and everywhere, everybody's like, "Oh, time to re-sign Jalen Johnson," which I'm an advocate for. We need him. I absolutely need him to carry us into the future at CB1. Do you think it's more advantageous to sign him to an actual deal that may be record breaking or record setting for the CB position, or do you think they should go ahead and go with the franchise tag and then continue the negotiations?
Well, how many times are you going to franchise tag him, right? I mean, because he's just entering his prime, right? This was the best year of his career. He's still very, very young. You're going like he's just entering that. So to not have the expectation that he's going to be an elite level corner for at least the next 4 years over the length of a contract extension would be crazy to me. And I know we always talk about resetting the cornerback market or any market for a player, but that's gonna happen every year, man. Whoever's the last corner to get signed, the last elite player to get signed at any given position is going to reset the market. That's just what it is. Each year the price go up. So, he might set the record this year, and then the very next corner that gets signed will set it again. So it just is what it is in terms of that. But I think that he's proven himself to be such a dynamic player at that cornerback position. Not only with his ability to make plays on the ball, we already knew he can cover and stick to his guy man to man. He's always been tough to throw against and complete the ball. But he had ball production last year. He had the takeaways last year. And he's always been somebody who's willing to come up and make tackles in the run game as well. So he's a great leader on the back end. He's a great leader in that locker room. I think he's everything that you want in a player that you want to extend. He's young, he's productive, and he's ascending. So, to me, don't play around and put yourself in a position where you tag him this year and then maybe you end up tagging him next year and it costs you so much money when you can just go ahead and lock him up for the next 4 years. I know it's expensive, but the price is the price. It costs what it costs. You want an elite player at any given position, it's going to cost. You got one, he's homegrown, you drafted him in the second round. Take care of your own players and get this thing done.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I had seen it. Sorry, Swift. I just seen it so thrown around so often, especially over the last few months. But even after the cuts yesterday, you've seen the arguments go back and forth from pay that man to franchise tag, and we got other holes to fill and this and that. So I just wanted to throw that out there and get your thoughts because I'm team pay him. I'm tired of seeing our young guys walk away and don't get paid, and they're star caliber guys, and then we don't get to see them go into the next phase of our success. So go ahead, Swift. I know you was about to.
I don't think there's any way you can let JJ walk. Everything Herb said is dead on. He's 24 years old, and he was one of the best corners in the league this year, all-pro player. And when you combine that with Eddie Jackson leaving, who's been pretty much our leader in the secondary and the longest tenured Bear we had, he's gone now. That torch is going to be passed to Jalen Johnson. He's going to become the leader of this secondary. Brisker might step up a bit, but I expect that to be JJ. He's always been a leader. He's helped these young cornerbacks develop, and we got to pay the man. Like, it doesn't – Herb nailed it. When you set the market with a new position, that could be – it's going to be set again the next year. And as long as you sign him to a 4 to 5 year deal, by the time you get to year 3 or 4, he's not going to be anywhere near the number one player at his position anymore, and could even fall out of the top 10. So, yeah, we got to pay JJ. There's no question there. And I think a franchise tag just further delays the inevitable, because if he comes out and has an even better season this year, he's going to want even more money, and the market could go up because someone else will reset the market. And then, hey, he's going to want to be up there again. So just get it done as early as possible. Pay him even big time up front. Like, make it front loaded. Get a ton of it out of the way now. I don't care, but pay the man.
I like Herb said.
You like.
Go ahead, Herb. Go ahead.
My bad. I just want to say, like, it's zero chance that he leaves. Like, there's zero chance he's leaving. Maybe not, like, zero, right? I would say right now it's 50-50 on whether or not they give him a long-term extension or they hit him with the tag. But zero chance he's leaving. He's going to be on this roster in 24. But for me, I'm only going to use the tag on a player who's maybe – I don't know if he's ascending, right? He's still got at least another great year or two left, but I don't know if we want to give him 4 or 5 years, right? So I use it on those types of players, or maybe, but you talk about a player that you drafted in the second round, that you developed, that's ascending, that's 24 years old, like Swifty said, like that's to me, that's a situation where it becomes a bit of a no-brainer to say, how can we get this thing done? Because next year, you tag him this year, you're going to probably end up tagging him next year because the market is going to get higher. He's going to continue to develop. He's going to continue to have ball production, especially if you add another pass rusher at the DN spot. That ball gonna come out quicker. It's gonna be more turnovers for this defense. And so, for me, man, just go ahead and get the thing done because next year, the Sauce going into his third year, like they might extend. Sauce might set the record next year. You know what I mean? So like, it's just something that you probably just want to go ahead and get done.
Go ahead.
And like I said earlier, Herb, like, look, you don't want to set the precedence of having homegrown talent not getting paid. And as soon as you produce, then guess what? We're going to ship you off somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? The one thing, the biggest knack, he took away a whole side of the field. The biggest knack was getting turnovers. Guess what? This year, he got 4 picks. He might have left 4 on the ground. He could have had 8, but he
could have had at least 6.
Look, he had 2 that he dropped against Detroit and 1 against Minnesota that he dropped. And you know, we had a conversation about that. But at the end of the day, he still performed at a high level to justify paying the man. So he like now he's steady ascending, and you just hit the nail on the head. When you add another edge rush, the ball gonna come out quicker. And you talking about people like Jared Goff sitting back there in that pocket. You know he's always in the mood of Thanksgiving, and you put additional heat. you put additional heat. Look, he gonna eat. So he is now the leader of the secondary. He's the veteran now. So you know it's so many hidden intangibles now to get the deal done. Like Swift just said, the next 2 years go ahead and front load it. You know, on a 4-year or 5-year deal, because you know we're gonna have to pay Justin in 3 years. That way, it doesn't overlap, and that's not that won't be a point of why we can't get this done. Because like you're spot on. Sauce Gardner is the next corner by our calculation that's in line to get paid. So more than likely, he's gonna have a big year. He's gonna reset the market. So yesterday's price is not today's price. It's only going to keep going up.
Yes, sir.
They did it to them. They did it to themselves, man. Like they could have saw this thing coming, right? They could have saw this thing coming, and they probably could have signed him before last year. They probably could have signed him 4 years, 65, 75, right? That ain't the case no more. It's just it is what it is. Y'all gambled and lost. He gambled and won, and you still got to keep him, right? You went into that Green Bay Packers game, week 18, without him. You saw what that looked like. Them boys is running wide open all over the field, right? And I like the 2 young ones. I like both of them, but ain't neither one of them Jalen Johnson. And you know, Terrell Smith just not ready to be that type of player for you yet. So you know, sign that man. He's a leader, and he's the leader in that secondary. He's a leader in that locker room. To me, that's just something you got to get done. I mean, I know you look at it like, man, last year we was looking at a different kind of number. Now we had maybe twice that number. Well, that's your fault, right? You could have did this last year. You chose not to, and now that's just what it is. So, you know, sometimes you gamble and win. Sometimes you gamble and lose. They lost, but I mean, they still won. They got a Pro Bowl. I mean, an All Pro corner. So, you know, keep him.
Herb made 2 killer points there. I mean, one, he's just too good. You can't let him go. You can't let a guy who's that good ever leave your team. And then Herb was there at the presser last year when someone, it might even been Herb, asked him if he was worth the same contract extension that Trayvon Diggs got in Dallas. And he said, no, I'm not that player yet. I'm not getting the interceptions. I don't have the All-Pro. I don't have the Pro Bowl. So at that time, it seemed like Jalen's mindset was, I will accept a contract extension that is not as big as Trayvon Diggs was in Dallas. But the Bears didn't give it to him. He went out there and got that All-Pro he was talking about. He got the interceptions. He got the Pro Bowl. He's the man. So now, just like you said, yesterday's price is not today's price, but we still got to pay him because just like Herb said on the other point, we have young corners that are talented, but that makes it even more reason why we got to pay JJ. We're not paying Kyler. We're not paying Jaquan Brisker. We're not paying Tyreek Stevenson. We're not paying Terrell Smith. They're all on rookie deals. So we have to just pony up, give JJ what he wants, and move on with it. Bite the bullet. He's not going to set our franchise back that much. Like it's one contract, and we're not paying anybody else right now. Just pay the man. Get it over.
Right. And then if you do that, if you do let him walk away or you do let him off to another team, right? and you try to depend on these young cornerbacks, you're basically recycling and doing it all over again, trying to wait to see and be patient to see if one of these guys can be Jalen Johnson. And not just from what he did last year, I don't think they come close to what he's done previous to last year when he was getting the picks just yet. So you may have to wait another 1 to 2 years for Kyler Gordon, Stevenson, and Terrell Smith to become or to produce anywhere near what Jalen Johnson was doing before he was even getting the turnover. So I agree with all three of you fellas. We got to pay the man, show him some love, show him that he did what he was supposed to do. He challenged, Poles gave him the challenge. He accepted the challenge, pay the man. So my next question I want to ask you guys, and me and Swift were talking about it earlier. I sent a text in the chat, and Swift didn't want to discuss this guy, and I don't want to discuss him either. But I always see rumors out there, and even if they make me laugh, I want to throw them out there and get people's reaction and hear what their thoughts are, and then hear what if they aren't for those particular players, who are the guys that you really want to look at, the more realistic players. So I kind of like to challenge Swift sometimes. He'd be like, Swift is like, yeah, I don't want to talk about that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? So Danielle Hunter, the rumor came out about, Danielle Hunter and the Bears possibly making a run at them. This is what they call lion season, and they start coming out with speculation and, they got cap space, so, and they got a need over here for that. So let's add put those two together. Put the Bears in a defensive end, the Bears in a safety, the Bears in this position together. So the Danielle Hunter rumors came out. Then all of a sudden, CODY Whitehair as well as Eddie Jackson were released. So we got three holes, particularly that to me I believe should be priority. You got center, you got the other side on the edge to complete that D line, and then a center, D line, and then the safety. So I'm not sure how far you and Swift. I know you guys do a lot of player personnel analysis and look into the guys coming in from college as well as the free agents.
Swift do way more than that than me.
Yeah, he's the man. I always tell him he to go to that. But
Thanks.
Are there any particular players that you guys are eyeing for those three positions outside of the noise that the media is kicking off right now, for the edge position, for the center position, as well as the safety to replace, whether it's a draft or free agency?
It's a good question. Listen, man, Danielle Hunter is a dog. Like, I know, he's right at that 30 point in terms of age, but that dude is a problem. He's super strong. He's super athletic. I was talking to Will earlier and talking about a play where Danielle chased Justin down to the sideline, and it's like, you don't see that from a lot of DNs. Justin get that corner 99% of the time. And Danielle was like, nah, you're not getting that on me, right? We all see how strong he is. He loves to show off his guns and all that. He's super strong, but he's super athletic and fast too. I think you put him opposite Montez. You talk about two guys that got high motors. That could pay dividends. I'm not opposed to that at all. Now, it all depends on what the number is. And we talked about having to pay Jalen, and we know we just gave Montez his money. So, you got to figure out what the number is. You got to compare that number to what you think you may be able to get in the draft. Because if you think you can get somebody who's going to come in here and be a proven pass rusher or be a successful pass rusher at this level, if you think you can get that on a rookie contract, then go do that, right? If you like the kid from UCLA, go do that, right? If you like the kid from Alabama, go do that, or any one of these other kids in terms of college pass rushers. But if not, and you feel like getting one of these veterans, or you think you can get a Max Crosby or something in a trade, or you want to go interior, you think you can get something, Deron, you think you get Deron Payne or Allen in a trade with Washington or something like that, then cool. But I think that, again, going back to what I said earlier, it depends on what you think that balance is between going through free agency or going through the draft. And if it costs you way more to get something that you also think you get in the draft, then you probably just want to wait.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead,
No,
boss.
let me give a point on that
For
before I
sure.
forget it. Yeah, I think Danielle Hunter would only make a great fit if we were on that where Herb said next year, where like, hey, this year he expects us to be a playoff contender, but next year we could be a Super Bowl contender. And to me, it would be a great fit if he would be a great fit if he was that final piece to make a Super Bowl run. But when making a move like this, if you want it to make sense, he's going to be 30 years old. He's going to want probably 25 to 30 million a season. We just paid Montez Sweat. I just don't think it's financially responsible and fits what Ryan Poles does and what our window of competing is. I think unless Poles is higher on this roster, just a step higher than me and Herb are, and he's like, I think we can compete this year, then I think it would make sense giving him that money. But if not, I'd rather sign a lower cost. You can save a little bit of money and get a Bryce Huff or maybe even a 1-year deal on a Chase Young and then draft a young edge rusher to complement Montez Sweat. I think people forget about DeMarcus Walker a lot as well. He's still making a lot of money this year at defensive end as well. And he played a lot better once we got Montez Sweat last year. So I don't see him. I just don't see Poles spending that much money on an edge rusher in free agency, but I'll let you take it, Will.
Well, you look. You put one of mine out there from the Jets. The only thing about Bryce Huff, he's a hell of a pass rusher, but when it comes to rush defense, he leaves a lot to be desired. Safety Geno Stone from Baltimore, he's a free agent. The one thing I like about him, he a ball hawk. He'll come up and tackle too. That's the biggest thing, and that's why we all fell in love with Cam Kitchens from Miami down at the Senior Bowl because. Once we started watching that kid, he got that fire that you look for on the back end of someone that's a ball hog, that likes to tackle, that's hungry. Because we saw like at the Senior Bowl, the game was practically over. They was losing 16-7. He was trying to get back on the field and put some more, film on tape. And I was like, that's the type of sense of urgency that you want. And then at center, I know we was talking about Connor Williams at the beginning of the year, but after I think he tore his ACL or Achilles. Now I'm looking at Lloyd, but if we can get JPJ, man, look, that'll be a great. But we still need, I think, a veteran presence or someone to really control the line. But we can also draft one that can play center, and because we got to strengthen up that interior offensive line. Because I love Tevin Jenkins. And he gets hurt every year. So we got to have insurance on top of insurance on top of insurance. Because, again, last year really showed me it doesn't matter who you got at quarterback, who you got at wide receiver. But if you ain't got nobody to block, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. You guys got any ideas on the center position or the safety, Swift or Herb?
Center, I mean, I think there's two that stand out. Lloyd Cushenberry or Tyler Biadasz are two of the free agent centers. The other one Will just said was Connor Williams, and he's out. And I just don't expect Poles to make a giant investment in a guy who's recovering from injury and going to miss half the season. Two sleeper ones, Aaron Brewer or Evan Brown. If you bring one of those guys in and draft a center as well, I think it'd be great. And then I have two at safety. My top two fits would be Xavier McKinney. He's a guy who can play. He can play that center field position right next to Jaquan Brisker. And he's a reliable tackler, which is what we were missing a little bit with Eddie Jackson sometimes. But he's also got the speed to come up, make the big plays, get the interceptions. And then Julian Blackman, converted cornerback. He was drafted by Matt Eberflus in Indy. Eberflus converted him to a free safety. He wasn't as great his first 2 years, but since Eberflus has left, he's kind of blossomed into a much better player. So he's a guy to keep an eye on as well. I don't think Anton Winfield hits free agency, by the way. He's not going anywhere.
For sure. Herb, you can answer if you want to. I know you say you're not too privy, or like none of us are as privy. That's why I always hand it over to Swift when it talks about player personnel. And he's trying to get me to get more and more into actually doing the research on the players, but well before the draft. I kind of like to wait till April and then I get into it. Any guys on free agency or any guys that you've seen at the center position that'll be available via the draft or free agency, Herb?
Hey, I like to say, if you can't improve on silence, shut up. You know what I mean? and Swift already laid it out better than I could. So, no, I don't have nothing to add to what that man just said. I do like the rookie. I do like the kid from Oregon at center though, right? I do. He is an intriguing prospect. Now, where the Bears currently sit in terms of draft position, I don't know. Of kids that can come in and be day one starters for you. Again, that's that balance between paying a vet or bringing in a guy on a rookie contract that could be as productive. So I do like him. I'll add him to the conversation, but no, I defer to the man that know more about it than me.
Yeah, and I love JPJ. He's the best center in the draft. I just finished my scouting report on him. Watched 14 games of tape. Like he's a monster. I think he goes in the first round between pick 15 and 25. So yeah, we would have to trade down, but I think the trade down from 9 to 15 makes a ton of sense. I've talked about it a little bit already, but there's 9 offensive prospects that just set on top of almost everybody's draft boards. We pick right there at 9. So we have a chance of trading down either for someone to come up and get the leftover offensive player of those elite 9 guys, or come up and get the best defensive player in the draft. Do you want Liatu Latu? You want Jared Verse? We have a ton of flexibility there if Poles decides, hey, Jackson Powers Johnson is the answer. I would be all for it. I love the kid.
And a sleeper guy we can watch is that center from Georgia because, and I think right now he has a 3rd round grade, but with proper coaching from SEMO, he'll definitely be a viable upgrade from Lucas, Patrick, Whitehair, and Feeney.
Yeah, that sounds good. My next question, since everybody seems like from the start, I said I'm tired of hearing the beating a dead horse question of Caleb versus Justin or whatnot. So I was trying to avoid the pick between the two, but I do want to discuss the draft itself, since everybody seems to be pro keep Justin or move and build around him. We currently hold the first pick. I think everybody pretty much is okay with the trade back aspect of it that's on the panel currently. So at pick 1, or even if we trade back to maybe 2 or 3, 5 or something like that, and we still have the 9th pick, at those picks, either of those picks, wherever we end up, we're going to have a top 10 pick, right? So those first 2 picks, where would you guys like us to go with those 2 picks?
Now I'll say wide receiver. Obviously, we need a wide receiver. I think it's a premium time to get a wide receiver up there, and then either an offensive lineman or a defensive end. I think those are the only positions I'd really see Ryan Poles taken in the top 10. Obviously, I don't think he'd take Jackson Powers Johnson in the top 10 unless he planned on playing him at guard and was like, hey, this is the next Quentin Nelson, which he did play a season at guard and didn't give up a sack. So you never know. But no, I think it's one of those positions. Unless we trade down, it's going to be wide receiver, defensive end, or one of those offensive tackles who could play tackle or guard. And like if we took a Tali Fuaga or a Joe Alt, potentially one of the Tali Fuaga could come in and play left guard. And then if something happens with Braxton Jones or he doesn't work out, he can step over and help out. But I don't see us really reaching for a crazy. I don't even see tight end. Even though Brock Bowers is legit, I don't see us taking a tight end in the top 10. I just don't see it.
Will, I want you to give us your top 2 or your first 2 of the draft.
Oh, definitely first pick. If I'm Ryan Poles, I'm looking at Marvin Harrison Jr. By trading down to 2 with the Commanders, and then possibly either to 3 or 5. But I know if I want Marvin Harrison, probably not going past 3 to get him, because on a lot of draft boards that I'm seeing and a lot of the scouts that I talked to when we were down in Mobile, a lot of people, they like Jaden Daniels at 2, and some liked him at 1. So, I think we're going to be in for a surprise come draft day. But then the second pick, like Swift said, I can either see, and that's why I'm closely watching free agency, us getting an edge or a left tackle. And the kid from Oregon State, after watching him live and how he put Latu in the dirt, I became an instant fan, because even if we were to put him at left guard, and like Swift said, something happened to Braxton, he get another stinger, we can push him outside the left tackle, and it gives us flexibility amongst the line of dogs on top of dogs, and not having that significant drop off like we did. We had to go to CODY and Luke and to Feeney. So that gives us continuity along the line. So I would be along that ram to feel at least that potentially could be 2 day one stars, and it should be if we go that route.
Herb, you got any say so on the top two? I'm sure you at least got that. I know I at minimum got that. I think I would go Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, I kind of want to load up on offense, so I would go him and a Doomsday. I would go crazy like on the double wide receiver, especially if you're keeping Fields. You give him the maximum opportunity with three potentially elite wide receivers at some point in time, because if they're going to get drafted to another team, that team is going to put them at wide receiver one. So you got the possibility of having three wide receiver ones shooting out there. I don't think you can lose, especially with how Justin Fields did with DJ Moore, setting records, all of his personal records, from yardage for a season to 3 touchdowns in the game, being the most ever for him, like all of that. So that just that gives Justin Fields the best 3 he's had since Ohio State. So what are your thoughts?
That's sexy right there, man. Like you talk about having those sexy drafts. Like, I know it's not a sexy pick. Those are very sexy picks. For me, man, you gotta like the Bears gotta lead this draft with Marvin Harrison Jr. That's just how I feel about it. That kid, you got the number 1 pick, and he's the best player in the draft. And so obviously, because of quarterbacks and the value, you get an opportunity to trade back. You can get back down to 2. You can get back down to 3. Cool. I wouldn't go any further than that because you got to get this kid. Like I think he is the generational talent in this draft. I would bet anything that kid is going to be a generational talent, a future Hall of Famer. I think he's that good. I think by his second year, that year we're talking about, where the Bears can be a Super Bowl contender, I think he could be your number 1 receiver and bump DJ down to number 2, and that would be crazy to have DJ as your number 2. You still got Cole Kmet, who'll be on the 3rd year of his contract at that point. When you talk about getting Rome, like that's super intriguing. I don't know, I don't know if they'll do that, but it is super intriguing. But even if not, you continue to develop, Tyler Scott strictly in that slot position, and I think that they could position themselves to have a lot of success at wide receiver. So I think for me, man, you go out there and you get Marvin Harrison Jr. Maybe you come back at 9 and get Brock Bowers, right, and have that other tight end, so you can get your 2 tight end packages and you get your move tight end there. So that's intriguing to me. If not that, then I would, be more inclined to move down from 9, see if you can, get, something, another pick between because what are they at right now? 9 and what is it? 70
75, something like
that.
Yeah,
they don't have a second round pick right now.
Yeah, so moving down from 9, getting that second round pick is something that I think that Ryan Poles has to be thinking about. So I don't know, what ends up happening at 9, but I'm not mad at getting Rome there. I'm definitely not mad at getting Bowers there, but I'm going to be very, very mad if they don't get Marvin Harrison Jr. somewhere in those top 3 picks.
And in 2 years, I think DJ should be up for an extension too. So he's going to be looking at about $30 million.
Yeah, and he'll still be young.
If he continues to do some
DJ's already talked about it. He wants one more contract, another 3, 4, 5 years after this, and then he said he's ready to retire. So if you draft Marv, like Herb said, it's perfect because he's on a 1st round pick contract for 5 years. We could pay DJ whatever we want. And if by next year, like me and Herb both expect, Marv would be our number 1, we can move DJ all over the place. I think DJ would be an absolute monster out of the slot.
Oof.
If you got Marvin Harrison Jr. on one side getting double team attention, you got DJ Moore in the slot, you're moving Cole Kmet around, you got Justin Fields, who they got to put a spy on. Like, our offense becomes dangerous, and that's without even putting another receiver out there like a Tyler Scott or someone we can get on day 2 or 3 if we ended up with a Brendan Rice or a Malachi Corley. This receiver class is stacked. So I'm hoping Poles does what he did in the last 2 years, double dip. But this year at the wide receiver position, he took the 2 DBs the first year. He took 2 DTs and 2 cornerbacks last year. Now we need that at wide receiver. starting with Marvin Harrison Jr., like Herb said. Like, you get Marv and any other wide receiver, I don't care. Like, you can wait till round 5 and get Luke McCaffrey. Like, that's fine. I'm fine with it.
Or Lad
Okay,
McConkey. Where you think Lad McConkey going? Second round?
He going
Yeah,
second.
I'm thinking
So
he's
that's a
second
bit
round,
high.
right? Like, you get a Lad McConkey in between DJ Moore and Marv. And then, Ville wanted to get stanky with it and talking about some Roma. Man, come on, stop. Now we looking like Jamar Chase.
That's better than the Bengals 3.
T. Higgins.
That's better than the Bengals 3.
Man, stop playing. Stop the break.
That's better than the Seahawks. The Seahawks had DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba.
Yeah.
If we did that, if you got Marvin Harrison Jr., DJ Moore, and Romo Dunze, that's the best receiver trio in the NFL. And that's if Fields doesn't throw 4,000 yards with that, you get rid of him, and next year you can bring in
you still got Cole.
Anybody can have success with that. So
that's Shedeur Sanders next year. Let's go.
Right, and everybody's sleeping on the fact that Roschon Johnson is still on. I know this isn't like the sexy thing. Like, I just appreciate Irv for calling my my setup but Roschon Johnson was developing as a pass catching back like that. There's so many threats that'll be all over, and I think Herb just hit on it. Like, we'll still have Cole Kmet, with that particular setup. So you'll have 3 hard to stop wide receivers. Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna guard? The run game is gonna go crazy, and even if you do try to double team or hedge or play some sort of bracketing defense to stop those 3, just check it down. Roschon could get 6 to 8 every time, because you're gonna have to pay attention to those wide receivers. So it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be way better than what San Francisco has with their situation. So if you play it right,
around 50%.
Oh, hands down. And look, don't sleep on a Bucky Irvin out of Oregon, because I can see him dropping to the 3rd or 4th round, and that's picking him.
I love the way he told it right.
Come on,
from the crib.
Man. I'm talking about he told it with eyes. The cutting, the shiftiness, like, you add that, because we don't really have that right now. We don't have that at all.
Nah.
Yeah, that's what we're missing at running back position. We need some home run speed. Roschon can hit it occasionally, but he's not like consistently fast like that.
Yeah. I just love him as a how we talked about him last year during the draft show, Swift. I just love him because he's the all-around back. He's not, like you said, he's not going to be explosive and give you those long run touchdowns or leave people in the dust, but he's a pass blocking and a pass catching back. He's not just okay at it. He's like, could be elite soon if you continuously put him out there. And you don't have to feature him. Like you guys said, we can draft a running back this year to pair with him if we're not going to continue on with Herbert, which could be likely. You don't know. But
yeah, he's got 1 year left, and then he's probably. But I will say, Roschon does have that home run speed. It's just different than like guys like Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs. He doesn't accelerate like that. But if he has the space, he showed it. He showed it at Texas and last year in the preseason. If he has the room to run, he just takes him a little bit longer to get in that second gear, but he can run over 22 miles an hour. So he's a guy who can fly. He just doesn't have the explosive burst of like a Alvin
short area
or Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got a question for all of y'all. After watching Kevin Warren's interview with Jared Payton, I'm sorry. Excellent interview. We got to give kudos to Jared. I've seen some people trying to tear down him. Somebody got on one of my posts and said, he wasn't hitting them with hard ball questions. He was giving them softball questions and stuff like that. Jared knows what he's doing. Plus, he's a part of the Bears family. He doesn't have to give a hard ball question for them to spill.
You don't think Kevin Warren screened those questions? Come on.
Right. So, but one thing that I heard, and everybody's talking about the Fields part of it. I heard, I was listening to the stadium situation, right? We got 2 guys on the panel right now that aren't in the state, so they don't really count right now. So Swift and Will, they're away. They don't have to deal with traffic and all that stuff like that. But from what we're hearing is that it's coming back. Like, we're bringing it back to Chicago, which I was for whatever, what I'm saying? I'm in Downers Grove, so I can go either way, right? So it's exciting to hear that they're kind of shifting gears back to the lakefront and making that that transition and possibly just building from there. What have you heard, outside of what he gave us, obviously, what is really going on? Can you explain to, our followers as well as your followers that I'm pretty sure you've spoken on it before, but what is really going on with Arlington Heights and the property?
Yeah, I think that Kevin Warren was put in a bad position, in a place of he was placed at a deficit in terms of leveraging these negotiations. Right, the Bears already bought the land before they brought him in to handle these negotiations, and they bought the land obviously before they had settled on what the taxes would be, and that's a problem because once you buy the land, you no longer have the leverage in these negotiations. Negotiations are all about leverage. They don't have none, right? You bought the land, and so now what you see is Kevin Warren scrambling. I think he's doing a really good job of trying to create some leverage from other places, right? So you talk about, oh, we'll put it back downtown Chicago, or we'll put it out in this suburb, or out in that suburb. I even heard them, we'll put it over around the corner in Indiana. No, they won't. The Bears ain't like that. The Bears bought that land to put a stadium right there. Like that's what they bought. What are they gonna do with all that land? They got all that land to buy it to put a stadium right there. They ain't gonna do nothing else. The Bears are not one of these other franchises who make bread doing something else. This is what they do. This is what the Hallis McCaskey family does. The Bears is what they do. The Bears is their business. So, they bought that land. They're going to build on that land. I would be very surprised if they do anything other than ultimately build the stadium on the land that they bought out in Arlington Heights. I don't think they bought it to flip it and try to sell it. Flip it to who, right? The value was putting the stadium there, and then you can build, living and shopping and all those types of residential and shopping around there. So I don't think, there's really a realistic way that they don't end up building there. But I do like Kevin Warner's doing anything he can to kind of regain some leverage because the Bears put him at a big disadvantage by pre-purchasing that property before they brought him in there and before they settled on the taxes.
For sure. We appreciate it because I'm a little confused myself, seeing all the back and forth, and I even heard them. I just moved down from Waukegan like 2 years ago. Me and my wife, we came back down to the civilization, if you will.
Mm-hmm. From the North Pole.
I'm from Maywood. She's from the west side. So we're like, when we heard that Waukegan is an option, Naperville is an option, Aurora is an option, Indiana, what's really going on? Like, so we appreciate you for shining the light on that, because a lot of times we pay attention to just the team, the coaches, what's going on with that, but like that's something that we really want to know. Like, we're excited about the stadium. We know it's going to be years away, but like, come on, man.
You know how people break up.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know how when people break up and have a little break with their partner, and then they start, running the streets, and now you see them with this woman, trying to get her to think she's gonna be just, man. You won't want none of them people, right? You want her back. You know what I mean? So I think like that's ultimately that's all we seeing. The Bears just running the streets right now. They bouncing around from nightclub to nightclub, having these one night stands, but ultimately they taking their ass back home where they already made that investment.
Yeah, I guess we was playing around and playing in the other cookie jars and ran out of time. So
yeah, I think people are talking crazy about Kevin Warren a little bit sometimes. He's a smart man. He's gotten stadiums built before. He knows what he's doing. There's a reason why he let all that news slip about them possibly staying in Chicago 10 days before it was announced that, hey, Arlington's tax already is valued at what they had last year. He already knew that. He's a step ahead of people. And like Herb said, he's out negotiating, and just let the man do what he does. It's a long process, and fans just want to run their mouths sometimes.
And that Minnesota stadium is my favorite stadium in the league, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, that Minnesota stadium is phenomenal. And I've been to SoFi, I've been to Allegiant. Of course, we've been to Jerry's World. A lot of Mercedes-Benz down in Atlanta is dope. A lot of stadiums are dope. But that Minnesota stadium is my favorite one in the league. The sight lines, the acoustics, how it looks on the outside, like all of it is super, super dope. And they did that basically in the middle of downtown. I would love to see what he could do with a clean, open slate out in the middle of Arlington Heights. So, man, I think that, having him lead that project is going to be super, super dope. Like you said, he's done it before, and they've done it to the highest level. That stadium in Minnesota US Bank is super, super dope.
And I'll add to that. That was one of my favorite points of the interview that was overlooked a lot. He was asked about what roof he would bring in, and he talked about the same roof they have in Minnesota. And I love that thing because it's an indoor stadium, but it's glass. It lets the light in. It feels like you're outside. It's a beautiful stadium, like he said. So having him lead this project, and if we end up like a stadium like that, I don't care where it is, but I'd say 90% it ends up in Arlington.
Oh yeah, man. Arlington's not gonna bypass $1 billion worth of revenue coming into that. It's all about taxes right now. And again, like Herb said earlier, if you understand business, the way that the assessor, the tax assessor, the way they value that property, all that stuff, realistically, that property should have been acquired after Kevin Warren was brought on. He was brought into a bad situation. So when I see idiots on Twitter talking about, oh, he's about to F up the Arlington Heights project, that's when you know that, again, people are just...
They don't know what they're talking about. He's trying to save it.
He's trying to save it and salvage it, but also make it advantageous for the Bears as well. Because you're already showing how much revenue from the hotels, because the school district, like all these different taxes, they're going to make so much money in Arlington Heights. So, it's just getting them to come and play ball where it's going to be advantageous for all parties involved.
Yeah, Will has a we were discussing the actual roster a little while before you got on and joined us before we hit live or went to record. So we'll go ahead and ask that question about the roster construction.
So we got 19 pending free agents, Herb. If you had to pick one, because based off what I looked at, I don't really see. I might see one or two that potentially might get re-signed. But if you had to pick one, that could be a viable option coming back, which one would you pick and why?
This is not counting JJ, right? Because that's
right.
We're not counting JJ because we know he's not going nowhere.
Other than Jalen, I don't know if there are any that they would miss terribly if they didn't bring him back. So I mean, yeah, I just don't think they'll miss none of them terribly if they don't bring him back. Justin Jones, that's not something I view like that would be a huge loss if they don't bring him back. He did play much better once Montez got there than he had, the previous year and a half. But you got two guys developing behind him. You got Billings playing the nose. Like, I just don't see any of the free agents as being like something that you have to bring back. Now, depending on how they feel about, Yannick and his injury and where he was at the point before then, that might be another question. They can bring him back on another 1 year prove it type deal. That may be one of those cheap options that Swift was talking about earlier. I just don't view any of the free agents as like guys you can't go without. I don't really view them like that other than JJ. I really don't.
Now I might wow you with this one, but I was thinking about Mercedes Lewis because
I was gonna say him. Yep. I was like, hey, bring him back.
And I asked Marcel, I said, bro, how have you managed over almost 20 years to not only physically stay in shape and stay engaged, but just, every year, year in, year out, OTAs, mini camps, training camp. And he said, look, I keep my mental strong, man. He said that because physically he's still a monster. And in most cases, as we saw in 12 personnel, like, guess what? He was the linchpin in the run game. He, as far as helping Braxton Jones blocking, and then of course the veteran leadership. So, and then of course I know the other answer would probably be Equinemius St. Brown because he's a great blocking wide receiver. But if we do what Bill said, then that it might be harder for him to maintain a roster spot with Tyler Scott and Velus Jones. Wide receivers, but at the end of the day, when you look at the value, like Mercedes Lewis to me would be number one, and then maybe Equinemius St. Brown.
Yeah, I mean, you look at EQ, he was a healthy scratch several games last year, right? And we wasn't even loaded at receiver like that. So you talk about bringing in Marvin Harrison Jr. and whomever else, I don't know that becomes a necessity. Again, it's not that I'd be mad to bring those guys back. I just don't think it's like absolutely essential or that you would be, in a bad space if you don't. Now, Mercedes, I forgot about him because y'all said players, not coaches, right? That dude, you look at him, you like he's a
Wait a
coach.
minute.
you see him in the
The
locker room like he's a
disrespect.
coach, or you see him on the field at the practice field like he's a coach. But nah, he does still have some value on the field. I won't say this publicly. Maybe I'll tell y'all later. But the fact that he's had so much longevity with a physical condition that he's dealt with for about half of his career that he just recently got settled was crazy. Like he said that, I was like, wait, what you just say? And it was like, I don't know how you played 20 years like that, but anyway, man, I think you can bring him back. He's got great veteran leadership. He can help you in the blocking game. He can help you, in the short area passing game as well. So yeah, that was an oversight by me, but I view him so much as a leader and a coach. I didn't even think about him as a player for real. But
bro, come on, he like a Udonis Haslam, bro. Like you want him in.
Yeah,
think about it. Think
exactly.
about it.
In the last 5 years of Udonis Haslam's career, like, do he play or do he coach? Like, what do Udonis Haslam do? Is he a player or a coach?
Like, we got a bunch of kids in that locker room. If you look at the 25 and under, I think it's probably 85% of the roster with the pending free agents, that are 25 and under. So when we talk about leadership and who gonna galvanize the troops, like who you got, because Tremaine Edmonds, even though he's been playing 6 years, he's just 25.
Yeah, they all young, man. They all super young.
Y'all
man.
not gonna just disrespect my man Mercedes Lewis. He was coming on at the end of the year with that one touchdown.
Hey, he's a blocker, man. He's basically another offensive lineman. I mean,
he's a glorified tackle.
Yeah,
he is. And we know we got a bunch of kids because, like, let's be honest. When we were growing up, man, look, after the game, we still went and hit the jug machine, caught 100. Man, these guys, look, they on social media, they got podcasts, they going twitching. Because when Jared first was telling me, like, man, you follow me on Twitch, and I'm like, man, what the hell is Twitch? Like, man,
you just showed your age right there, bro.
He can't even. He doesn't even know the difference between the StreamYard link and the YouTube link.
Straight up.
Come on now.
He said twitching like Usher twitching, like Usher at the Super Bowl.
I'm like, bro, look, he said, you follow me on Twitch. I'm like, man, what
I'm
the
like
hell
my daddy. What you doing over there with that Facebooking and that Twitcher gramming?
Hey, Herb, Vil sent us the StreamYard link this morning. Was like, hey, here's the StreamYard link. What's Vil say, or what's Will say right back? Hey, where's the link I need to send Herb?
Hey, at least I keep it 100. Look, I ain't gonna fake it, guy.
That's hilarious.
Baby. I'm not used to all this, baby. Look, that's why I pay folks to do all this stuff, Swift. I don't do that stuff, bro. I'm learning. Look, I'm never too old to learn, baby.
Yeah, he's
That's
getting it.
That's why we got to pre-check every episode 30 minutes beforehand.
I will add one more free agent.
Man.
I'm gonna add one more free agent on there. It's a guy that I hope we don't have to keep him on the roster next year, but I'd bring him back in a minimum deal just in case. Trent Taylor. We need somebody who can return punts and
Keon Coleman.
Safe, solid. That's what I'm saying. If we draft Keon Coleman, then you end up cutting him. So it's fine. So yeah, I'm down with that.
We need somebody that can return punts and get some yards, not return punts and immediately down.
Trent don't return. Trent don't return punts.
Yeah.
He catches punts.
He catches punts.
Safety valve.
Yeah,
which is huge. Because
it's a big part of it.
Velus don't catch punts. Velus don't catch punts. Like the number one job of a returner is to make sure we get the ball back. Trent will do that for you. So I appreciate that. I don't ever want to see Velus back there on a punt return again in life. I'm gonna say this though. I think Velus coming to camp as a running back.
Ooh.
That's just a little take I got that I think Velus comes to camp as a running back. Now you can still flex him out and put him in the slot or whatever, but I think he comes to camp as a running back.
I talked about it a little bit last year. I think he's a guy, you just get the ball in his hands and he's dangerous, but he has problems catching the ball. So why not try it? I don't see a reason not to. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, we get too bogged down on what position he play.
Go look at the Cleveland Browns game, bro. He had 2 carries for 23 yards. Everybody else was like either negative or because I know Dante Foreman was like 6 carries, like negative 8 yards. And
we talked about it already. We said, what do we need at running back still? Someone who's fast, someone who's electric. That he'll bring that there, and that allows Poles to draft more receivers too. That's a win-win, killer point.
It is. And then to justify that third round selection.
I'm gonna be looking at that for real. I think we get too bogged down in positions, and he's supposed to play this, he's supposed to play that. He's supposed to play football, man. And that kid can't play football. That kid can play football. He can't really run routes, and he can't really catch the ball, but he can play the game. And so you get the ball in his hands, you let him do what he does. He has elite speed, but he also has ability to break tackles. He's a solid, strong kid. He's got thick lower body. Like he's like, give him the ball, get the ball in his hands, and let him go. So I remember asking him before. I think it was before that Cleveland game. I went up to him. I said, "Hey, man, when you gonna line up in the backfield?" And he looked at me like what you know? And so the game, the game came, and then I said, now I know why you looked at me like that, because you got them couple tosses out the backfield. I said they need to just toss you the ball at the backfield, line you up back there, get him some tosses, get him some misdirections, get him some straight leads. I ain't saying he got to get 15 carries a game, but 6, 8 carries a game, 2 or 3 swing passes. Get the ball in his hands a few times and see what he can do in space.
Your timing was too good on it. He was like, "You weren't supposed to be in those sessions of practice. What you doing?"
That's exactly what he said. But I just felt, for some reason, I just felt it come. Like, you get him a toss, man. I was like, you're gonna get a toss in here soon. He was like, what? I was like,
you got camera in
here?
He's
like,
that's why I said Herb is legendary. They think you got to be old to be legendary. He already living in his legendariness.
And the funny thing is, Herb, if you look at Chad Morton, Chad Morton's that type of running back coach. That's where he played. So we could definitely see Bayless being utilized like that, because a lot of people gave Bayless so much heat, that Chargers game where he was wide open, but somebody threw a medicine ball that took 2 hours to get there. And I'm sitting here watching it live, and I'm like, bro, like, I don't care, even if you're a wide receiver. Most people don't have the body physics to be going full speed, then readjust, and then come back. Like, no, like that. Bayless is not that type of athletic player. He's a full speed ahead guy that once he gets that momentum going, guess what? He could damn near be like Debo if he's utilized correctly.
Yeah, I mean, you get him 2 kick returns a game, you get him 5 or 6 carries a game, you get him 2 swing passes a game. Like, now he didn't touch the ball, 10 times, and with his dynamic ability, I think if he touches the ball 10 times in space, you're gonna get 2 big plays out of that. So, put him in space, give him the ball, let him do what he does.
Real talk.
Kick returning and running back this year. I'm down with it, man. Hey.
Yeah.
I definitely like that idea. Well, anybody got anything else for Herb?
Man, I tell you, boy, like for real. Like, we don't talk about the quarterback position, and I do think we'll draft a quarterback, but I think it's going to be in the later rounds. What do you feel about drafting like a Jordan Travis or?
I knew he was going to say Jordan Travis.
Jordan Travis, my guy, so I got to give him some pub.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I'm fine with drafting a quarterback every year. I'm a person that believes in that philosophy too. Or whether you get him late, or you get one as an undrafted free agent. You see what Brock Purdy's been able to do as the last pick in the draft. You saw Tyson Bagent came in and did exactly what you would want any backup to do if your starter goes down for 4 games. Can you get us 500? Can you keep us afloat while the starter is out? He did that, man. If you get him with more talent around him, you talk about bringing in, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome and you got Cole out there with DJ. Now you got a lot of people to just snap the ball, get it out your hand quick, get it to these playmakers. And so I'm always for drafting a quarterback that you think you can develop behind your starter that can come in and be effective for you if they need it. So I ain't got no problem with that.
I'm just glad he didn't say Joe Milton. I was like, just don't say Joe Milton.
Man, that's senior. Never mind. I ain't gonna go there. Senior Bowl practices. I seen somebody do a scouting report from the Senior Bowl saying that he had a good 3 practices or whatever. I was like, we was there. I don't know
Are you sure about that? I
don't know about
not what I saw.
Who paid you?
I think I'm the only person that still like Bo Nix too.
I like Bo Nix. I like Bo Nix.
Yeah. I like Bo Nix, man. I like his ability to command the offense, like his ability to get the ball out of his hands. I think he's more athletic than people give him credit for, and he's played a lot of football, man. I think these kids that come in and have success early, a lot of them have played a lot of football. They've seen a lot of coverages, made a lot of throws, and so I like Bo Nix. I think that he has as good a chance as any of these young quarterbacks to have early success. I don't know if he has the ceiling that some of these guys have, but the ability to come in and have early success because of his experience, I think he's an intriguing prospect.
Yeah, he had Michael Penix. Penix got a lot. I think 6 years, came from Indiana. But the only thing with Penix is going to be his medical. So if he can pass that, I can really see old Penix going in the late first round, or one of these old quarterback starving franchises might come up like Denver. After watching that pivot show with Antonio Pierce, I think he kind of put it out there that they're going to be looking for a quarterback too. So it's really going to be telling, because at the end of the day, let's be honest, a lot of this, the NFL is about entertainment. Entertainment translates to getting ass cheeks in the seats, generating revenue and cash flow. So everybody's looking for that quarterback that's going to fill the stands, provide the entertainment, whether they're building, whether they're trying to sustain. Because hell, even the Vikings look like they're going to be looking for a quarterback, because based off what I'm hearing with Kirk Cousins, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yeah, and that's the biggest question with Bo Nix. Where does he end up going? Because I said that if he ends up falling to the second round, and sometimes when quarterbacks fall, if they fall, they fall. So, I mean, if he falls and ends up in round 3, I'd snatch him up in a heartbeat to come in here, no matter how big of a Justin Fields fan I am. Like, you grab Bo Nix. Like, that's a guy who's got talent. I don't know if I'd take him top 10, like at number 9. I think a team might overdraft him, but you know how it is. Teams either identify as a guy as their quarterback, or he just ends up falling. So if he ends up falling and he's there in the second round and we got to pick, hey, do it.
Well, excellent show, fellas. If no one has anything else for her, we really appreciate you for joining us, especially midday. We know you got a lot going on in this off season, and it's
that flew by, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's just gonna keep ramping up for you, for us, and for everybody else in this reporter/DIY community.
Yeah.
Man, it's gonna get crazy, and I can't wait for the combine. I know all of us can't wait for the combine and for news to come out after that. Remember last year, right after that, everything started to open like a floodgate. So we just again want to say we appreciate you. We want to appreciate everyone that has been watching and tuning in. Please like, subscribe, comment below. Give us any questions that you might have on the topics that we explained. And on behalf of MODG Podcast, we out. Swift, give us a bear down.
Hey, bear down, guys.
Show.